Hello! Welcome back to Give Pause. I am Kyle, as always. We're in the game garage, but it's, figure I might as well, might as well show it to you since we are in the space. It's only 79 degrees out here right now, so easy peasy. So I'm still in the afterglow of finishing my first year with the channel. And one of the things that I really wanted to do was give my take a crack at a top 10 list. Top 10 list of all time. Yeah. If anyone watched the Frost Talk where my wife Kate and I tried our best at a top 5 of the year, first of all, you would know that top 5 turned into a top 10, but I've never really considered a top 10 of all time. This is challenging, and I'm not going to lie, I already, just like the difficult root questions with Sam when he came onto the channel, I already don't know if I support the answers that I came up with, but I figured, you know what, you gotta strike at some point and just make make it what it is. This is not a permanent document. This will change over time. So I'm just giving it my all for right now, and we'll see what changes. So for a couple things, I really liked. I've read other people's top 10s, why it's on the list and why it's not higher. And I'm also adding one extra thing, which is shoulders upon which the game stands. Because some of the games that are on this list, had I not played something else to kind of get an appetite for that type of game, it may not have climbed as high as it did. So even though that other game is, didn't make the list, something else did, the one that did owes a lot to the game that came before. So those, I'm going to referring to the shoulders upon which the games on the list may stand. Not all of them have them, but some of them do. First up is Monikers. Woo! So this game, honestly, I'm just going to get it right out of the way. Shoulders upon which this one stands, literally every party game I've ever played. Party games do have a place. I'm not someone who poo-poos them. As much as I love the rest of the games that are on this list, and believe me, there are not a ton of party games on it, sometimes you're just with a group of people and they don't want to break out a heavy strategy game or even a light strategy game. And Monikers, for those of you who haven't played, please do. It is fantastic. And the reason it is the top of the heap, in my opinion, is because other party games require you to bring in your own personal language between your friends or family or whoever's playing. Monikers, the way that it begins, the fact that it's, first you can say any word, you can use all gestures, you just can't say the word or the name that you're doing. And then from there it gets more and more difficult. It's like the one-word description. It's the motion only, but no words. It's the doing something pantomiming underneath a blanket or whatever. It gets, and for whatever reason, again, for those of you who have played any party game, you know that sometimes it'll be like, ugh, and people will be like, Albert Einstein, and nothing else leading up to that. E equals MC squared. People will be like, or whatever it may be. And you let someone does a crazy hair thing, and that works. It's that, but then that thing gets further and further distilled into these insane inside jokes. And I haven't honestly played this game that often, but I have yet to play it that didn't create lasting impressions, stories that we still tell each other about this game. It's not higher because, honestly, if I can get away with doing anything heavier than Monikers, I'm gonna. But Monikers has to be on there because there are very few games, even the heavy strategic ones, that have so consistently made those memories for me to draw back on. Number 9. This means nothing to you. Sick tech. Magic the Gathering. So I haven't played Magic since 2009. I stopped when I got out of undergrad. I started in undergrad. I stopped at the end of undergrad, mainly because I grew up in the Satan Panic of the 90s and the 2000s. And, well, if you played Magic in that time, Anyway, so I came to it late. OG Ravnica was my onboard. I thought the theme of that was amazing. And the reason this is on here, because I still have, these are my favorite decks. My Is-It deck. Parenting. For those who may still wonder why I do things in the garage, it is because our house is made of paper. We love our house, but the walls are made of paper, and we have a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and this is the only place I can get some space and not be actively making noise, interrupting other people. But sometimes, even during nap time doesn't happen. And the last thing, and then we get back into it, and I'm going to try to be more succinct. Otherwise, I'm not getting through this list. I vividly remember being 4 or 5 and having a nap time that I couldn't sleep. It just wasn't in the cards that day. And I remember I was like, well, I'll just lay here a bit and I'll go out and pretend like I had a nap. And I went out and I was like, oh man, done with my nap. And my mom was like, you haven't had a nap. I'm like, what do you mean? I did. And I used to think that was a funny story. Not anymore. Anyways, so Magic. I still have my favorite decks in here. I have things like Is-It. I have my Ninja deck. I have other things. My URW deck featuring Ryan's Combo, of Stuffy Bear and Scred. For those who, if you know, you know. Cold Snap, baby. I haven't played this in years, but this, Magic, predated all other hobby games for me. The only thing close to that was Star Wars Epic Duels, which was at the tail end of me playing Magic, which then became the Unmatched system later on. But Magic is the game of tinkering with decks and having those deep interactions that, honestly, I have not been able to shake. And there have been many, many games that I've wanted to get into, but right now, with parenting situation, means I don't really have regular game groups. My wife and I want to play more games, but oftentimes we just can't work it with our schedule. Means that I am ever pining after a system that not only has that much customization, but the people you're playing with can actually put in the time to really know their deck, your deck, the interactions. It's something that's going to be with me for a long time. And I have no intention. I've almost gone back to Magic 3 different times. I think I'm out, but if someone said, hey, let's play some of your old decks, I definitely wouldn't turn them down. All right, number 8. I'm cheating. This is what I've labeled this. Those colors are none of our colors games. So The King is Dead and Pax Pamir, 2nd edition. These two games are incredible. There, kind of reorganized. Amazing. Pax Pamir is so deep, and I remember reading everyone talking about how it's a sandbox. No pun intended, I suppose. How there's this open-ended game for you to get into and make these worlds that you get to live in for a little bit. And I was like, I don't know, it's like a area conflict sort of thing. I got in on the second Kickstarter for Pamir 2nd edition and was blown away by how the game feels. It really does. I mean, the games where you have a lot of military cards out as opposed to ones where you have none, or it just the ebb and flow of that huge deck and the fact you only see a portion of it. It's just so rich, and I love playing against Wakan, and it's super fun. Then The King is Dead, which, by the way, I decapitated the bottom half of the box because it was way too big. Also incredible. A boiled down experience where you are still vying for control, and not control, but power, by pulling the strings of these 3 different entities that no one actually controls. It's all pared down. I mean, there's no I know that King is Dead kind of went into there's a little bit of that like inspiration that went into Pax Pamir. I believe I heard that somewhere. But Pamir has so much other stuff going on, but it's also a little bit more challenging to teach and a lot more challenging to table, or at least like to have a chunk of time to work. King is Dead you can knock out in a very short amount of time, and it still has like lots of brain burny like first, second, third order priorities and challenges going on. They are wonderful. On the next up, Marvel United number 7. This is the obviously the Kickstarter box where I keep everything so far. The original Kickstarter, and I only added the Guardians of the Galaxy. I did add a couple more. I was going to buy at retail, but then Kaman was like, yeah, we're not bringing some things at retail. So I did go in on the X-Men one and added a couple that I decided to wait on. So I have this box pretty well full, and this one does stand on a couple of shoulders that I need to announce. Pandemic and Sentinels. Pandemic, I have, I think, 5 different versions of Pandemic. I really do like that game. I'm not going to lie, right now, it has taken a little bit of a thematic hit for me and some of my game group. But that was a really early on co-op game for lots of people, but definitely for me. Sentinels kind of fouled that up with something a little bit deeper and more strategic. But again, just like a little bit more to understand, and definitely more to table. Less so now that I have like the giant box where everything goes in. It's actually pretty easy to set up and tear down. It's just this enormous, chest you need to bring wherever you go. Marvel United is super fast to teach, pretty quick to play, actually surprisingly different based on the villains and the heroes that are in the games, and adorable. And it's just so fun. It's so easy to be like, hey, here's this premise. People are just like, yes, where do I play? When can we do this? I can't wait for more of this to come out. But for the time being, I'm really enjoying the game that I have. This next one I know is going to kind of label me a little bit as like a cult of the new. And I'm really trying not to. I guess I'm not. It's not too newish, but Dune Imperium, it's so incredibly good. And this is honestly the one that kind of gave me the idea of the shoulders concept, because were it not for the fact that Lords of Waterdeep has been for quite some time on my best games, like top games, when I've like tried to do it before. So I guess I should say I've thought about top 10 of all time. I've just never completed one. But Lords of Waterdeep has always been there because it's a really approachable game. It's pretty easy for me to teach. It was my intro to hobby games like capital H, capital G, like fully vested into the hobby. And I'm not saying that this like ousts Lords of Waterdeep by any stretch, but I just really, 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 really like this game. For the time being, if it was up to me, can't imagine a time when I would choose Lords of Waterdeep over Dune Imperium. Now, if I was introducing someone to the games at all, that would definitely be easier for me to do, but I'm super looking forward to the expansion. I really like the solo mode. My wife and I play with House Rule Hagal, or Victory Capable Hagal, essentially just the opponent, or the rival, I can't remember what they're called, but we let them acquire victory points as well. It kind of keeps us honest. And usually it does. It keeps us like a steady pace through the game. This last game, it actually took the game. I think the first time Victory Capable Hagal has beaten my wife and I, and me. But Dune Imperium, incredible. Number 5, little game, Hierarchy. I carried all these out to the garage. So thank goodness for little games. It actually, from here on out, top 5 and up, really do not have any of those shoulders upon which they stand. They speak for themselves. They first of their name. Hierarchy it's like a knife fight where one of your hands, your non-knife hands, are like bound together at the wrist. And when putting this list together, it actually made me think of anyone who's played Xenogears way back. I think PS1 or maybe PS2. I didn't play it, but my friend did. He got to the city where you can actually do like a 3D like fighting game of any of the mechs or the gears that you've seen or unlocked or whatever in the game. And one of the modes you could do was where you had this like tether in between you. So if you like ran really fast, yours was faster, and you like ran to the side, you would like pull the other one, but you could never get like that far apart from each other, and you would like zoom back together. And that's what Hierarchy is. It is just so tight and so smart and so sharp. My wife and I, it's this incredibly small silhouette of a game, not just its actual physical size, but it's like playtime. And over quarantine and when our game like plays, like I'm sure a lot of people went way down for some time, this was the game that if you're just, you know what, we haven't played in like 4 or 5 days, should get a game in, and we get like best of 3 Hierarchy, or maybe even just one. And it's sort of, I remember thinking how like feeble it felt to be like, let's play a game, like we got like a game of Hierarchy. But then the game actually started, and like there's interesting decisions, and then at the end we're like, you know what, now let's just like watch Netflix or like hang out or talk, because we never get a chance to do that as adults typically, or parents rather. And so I think for a while, I mean, it's not only on here for nostalgia, but it definitely earned an amount based on that. But it's just a fantastic game, super duper smart, like I said. And both, there are times when like you are convinced, you're like, wow, I'm like the biggest galaxy brain in the world, and then something happens, you forget something, and yeah, you're not, or you are, and it's just like constantly. There's very few games where it ends and you're just like, oh yeah, that was predictable. It rarely, I mean, even though you have your 5 cards, so you know the other 5 cards the other person has. There's still so much variance that can be done in that combination of what order they come out in. Chef's kiss. All right, number 4. Tesla versus Edison, specifically powering up. I've talked about this in a few different places before. I did not get in on Tesla versus Edison first time around. I got in on the Powering Up Kickstarter when the bots came along with it. And honestly, if it weren't for that, I don't know if I'd even have gotten into Tesla versus Edison. But I think that's a big reason why it's on this list. I honestly don't get to play Tesla versus Edison as much as I would like. This summer, I definitely want to get it to the game garage finally. One thing I need to do first is redo the kind of cheat sheet that I found online, because there are a couple things that they missed, or my brain just like glosses over or wants to read it a different way than they have it laid out, because it's a pretty complicated game when you're using the robots. Like some of the bookkeeping, the actual use of the robots is super simple. Just flip the card, do the things. And I think it's a really compelling game. The whole, inventing stuff, patenting it maybe, bringing it to market, the actual market, the stock market. But then in the Powering Up, it adds your HQ and and the events. It's all just super, super good. And it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. The color palette is amazing. And the fact that it's, it plays like some sort of like fantasy Euro game, but it's, what was actually happening in America. I mean, not literally, but the concept of AC versus DC and people bringing things to market that might be a little bit dangerous, but it's awesome. And just like beating people to the patent so they can get a little bit, like squeeze more money. And the fact that propaganda is like a straight up action that you can go take. And not only it is an action, but a crucial action. I love this game, Tesla vs. Edison. And the fact that it's not higher on this list, which I guess I kind of forgot to do for all these games. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to stream it in here. So Magic the Gathering. It's not any... Oh, Monikers, it's not higher. I think I said that one. That was the last one I did. because I would pretty much play all these other games ahead of Monikers, but I love it. Magic the Gathering, I don't play it anymore, and I actively have to like remind myself that I can't go after a game that's like a Magic clone, but maybe like a living card game or a contained card game, because I just don't have that time. If I did, or the specific play group with the time, I would probably play Magic the Gathering clones all day long. Those colors are none of our colors. Duo. Honestly, I think it's just the timeline that I've had those games. We just got King is Dead pretty recently. PAX Pamir not like that long ago for me. So they're just that kind of like they just got beat out by games I've been putting in way bigger numbers on. Or like in the case of Marvel United, slightly bigger numbers. The reason that's not any higher is because I do love co-ops, but I think I like competitive more, pretty much like across the board. I really do like how every group that I've introduced it to has just resonated, especially this last group. We just like racked them and did another game right in a row where we did Venom, and I did not know Venom was one of the few or only villains right now that actually removes people from the game, and 2 of them got removed, but they just like stayed around as our like cheering ghosts, and we won. So it's just, yeah, it's co-ops are good, competitive is slightly better. Dune Imperium, that one's tough. I really do like this game, but the ones above it are games that I just would almost always rather choose over Dune Imperium, or I just have a better personal connection to it since it's new. Hierarchy's not any higher, as it's a huge personal like place in my heart, and I think the game is fantastic, but it's sort of in the spot where Monikers is. It just happens to be 5 spots higher, so it's not any higher because I would choose these other games probably ahead of Hierarchy if I have the mental bandwidth and the time to do it. And that brings it to Tesla versus Edison, where I just haven't really played as much Tesla TVE with other groups. With other games have kind of beat it to the table more often than not. This used to be my favorite game. It got ousted, obviously, by 3 things, specifically the one that is now my favorite game. But it's within striking distance. Especially Kate loves worker placement. I introduced this to her years ago, and we did like a co-op 2-player against like the computer. It probably wasn't like the best way to teach it because I was pretty much like signing her up to be like permanent co-pilot while I played the game. So that's my bad. I'd like to think I'm not that dumb now, but I do think that there are a lot of interesting decisions to be made. It does have a dry aesthetic, which is kind of why I really like it. But it just got beat out by some other ones, specifically Spirit Island. This is the little box because my stack to bring to the garage was already big enough. Is that in the shot still? Yeah. So Spirit, amazingly, like a little over a year ago, I had not played Spirit Island. It was one that was kind of on my mind. Had heard of, obviously, quite a bit. The Cardboard Herald was a major reason. It kept coming up as Jack's top game. And I was finally like, you know what? I'm going to this school for the National Guard. It was in person, but it was distance. I was in a hotel for 2 weeks doing this like online course because it was a whole thing. I was like, I'm going to be bored to tears for a good amount of time, and I'm going to be like starved for interaction. What am I going to bring? And I got Spirit Island and be like, you know what? Let's dive into this thing and finally go for it. And I played so many. I played every spirit. I think, well, definitely at least once. At least half of the spirits in the base and the branch and claw, which is where I store all my spirit boards, I played twice in that amount of time. I brought some other games, but this was definitely the belle of the ball when I was in Virginia. It's so good. It's so very good. It's not higher because it is also a teach. I've taught it to a couple different groups now. One of them went out and bought it like immediately. The other one is my wife, and she loved it. It also is challenging because of the time commitment, which Tesla versus Edison and my first place game are going to share on that front. It's just hard to fit in, but it is so thematic. It is co-op, but honestly, the vast majority of this game that I've played has been solo. But at 2 or 3 players, I think it can be quite interesting. I personally would never play it at 4 or higher. Just sounds like a nightmare. Like maybe 4, but probably not. Yeah, it's amazing. I still have creatures or spirits from Jagged Earth that I have not played yet, and I don't have any of the promos yet, so I need to get on that. Yeah, like a year and a half ago, had never played the game. A year ago, I had a few under my belt. Now it's number 3. It's that good. Number 2. This might be surprising to some folks. Century Golem Edition. So I played. Let's do that. So I played Century Spice Road at one of the Geek Cons, where some friends get together, play for a whole weekend of stuff, and I was like, this is really interesting. Super boring looking. Like the cards, the components, not fun. This obviously changes that. But I am a sucker for just like pure engine builder, like building an engine. Like here are all these parts. Make the best thing you can. And that's what this is. And we've played so many of the again, just like Hierarchy, pretty small silhouette time frame wise. So you can fit this game in pretty easily, and it also isn't like a huge brain burner, which is why it did beat out Spirit Island, because this one has again been that like life raft that we have relied upon when COVID brain and heart have just been like ugh, and not like because we were sick, but just like downtrodden and didn't want to do anything, which sucks, but it is what it is. It's so good. It's delightful. We've given it twice as gifts, and both of the recipients, they loved it. I played it with this one. I probably played with the widest variance of like age and game familiarization, and it's a hit pretty much every time we play. I love this game, and it's a love in all capital letters and like hate in a tiny little subtext, because I really do like this game, but there's almost never a time when we play it that I'm like, couldn't we like bump it up like a few notches on the complexity level or like the thematic or whatever. But it never fails. We get it to the table, and as soon as I'm in. And I'm like, all right, what am I doing this time? Oh, cool. I'm leveling up to pink and then downshifting to whatever's, or I'm going to do one where I pick my hand up a ton, or a game where I pick my hand up once, or it's just, I'm into it as soon as we start, but sometimes leading up to that point, I'm like, can't we do something else? But yeah, number 2, and it should come as no surprise. I mean, I do have some ink now from the woodland that lives with me even when I'm not playing, but Root, I mean, I cannot overstate how big a part of my gaming life Root has become, from me being a way late adopter to the base game. Didn't think that it was interesting, didn't sound interesting to me. Eventually got it, taught it. I've famously said a couple of times, my first 2 games, one was just like straight up not good. One was like the first half was rough, the second half was pretty good. And then it sort of just like went in hibernation. And then I got the Clockwork expansion, and everything changed. Well, Clockwork expansion and the moles, because up until that point, like, needing cats and birds. The cats wasn't the issue. It's the birds, like teaching the birds or being shackled with playing the birds. And they are fun, and I'm not like begrudging them, but just not for everybody. Moles open that up a ton, your potential matchups. But the Clockwork, I mean, the reason this channel exists was to teach those Clockwork, those root bots. And I have gotten so much enjoyment. I just played this morning. I have that video ready to edit of me doing the first like physical solo challenge put out by Benjamin Schmaus over on the Better Bot project. Super fun. I put in so many games, and again, the vast majority, just like Tesla versus Edison, but vaster than this, have been me playing against the root bots, because it can be difficult to table. I've taught it now successfully to a number of groups, unsuccessfully to a smaller number. And I think I think the world of this game. I honestly do. So it's honestly, if you've watched this channel at all, you know I don't need to explain to you how and why, or how much and why and for what reasons I love Root. It should be pretty obvious just listening to me play, just watching me like exclaim to the things that can happen. And that's me playing against the robots, the root bots. When you actually play against humans, meatbags, and they can take vendettas, and they can make, slightly less than like optimized turns because they're angry at you, or they're angry at someone else, or they just want to be the obstruction or whatever, like, then it opens up this whole other avenue of crazy things that can happen. But even before, you decide, are we playing with robots or people, like just the factions themselves, the 8 that we have, and one of them is, a myriad of factions in the Vagabond, are so, the combinations make so many different experiences. The game completely, lots of games have variants. The inventors you're playing as in Tesla vs. Edison, the houses you're playing, obviously the heroes in Marvel United, the spirit, there's lots of games that have different setups and the game changes. But just the central conflict, what you're even focusing on, is so different in Root. If you have the Marquis, or if you don't, or if you have the Vagabond, or if you don't, if you have the Otters, or you don't. And then we're going to get 2 more, the Rats and the Badgers, this, spring, fingers crossed, or whenever it comes out. And then also the Hirelings. Like, it's just this ecosystem that I love falling into. Anytime I have the opportunity to play solo with my wife, with some robots, with my friends, it's just glorious. And I've spent an inordinate amount of time thinking about it, making content about it, playing it. It is far and away my most number of plays, and way far away time amount played game, and for good reason. It's just delightful. Now, last thing, let's say, I don't know when this is going to happen, how often I'm going to do top 10s. I'm going to go through, and I'm going to just challenge myself to see if I can say which ones I think are going to be on the top 10, and which I don't think. Root, yes. Century Golem Edition, yes. Spirit Island, yes. Tesla vs. Edison, yes. Dune, yes. Marvel United, yeah. Hierarchy, maybe not. And I'm not only saying that just so I can have one that I don't just say yes to, but maybe not. Monikers, also maybe not. Magic, this one I think I just wanted to put in there just to pay my dues to my own past self. This one will probably not be. So these 3, no. King is Dead and Pax Pamir, I think I'm going to keep cheating and just putting them together as one thing, even though they're obviously not. But to me, it's sort of in that flavor family. It's just this one is in a much shorter time span with less depth. It's shallower, but it's also a lot shorter. I can't imagine these going anywhere. So these 7, yes. These 3, I think no. But that's the beauty of top 10, snapshots in time like this. Because to me, going down this list, I'm obviously yes, because I am not in the future. When I'm recording another one of these, I'll probably be looking at my lineup that I have, and I'm how on earth did I think that game was still going to make the cut? Or, who knows? How on earth could I ever think Hierarchy could ever leave, or Monikers, or Magic? Who knows? We'll see. But anyways, thank you for being here for this video, for any videos, for any and all of the stuff that I put out this past year. It's been wild. You know, I'm now kind of lapsed past my year anniversary by about a month almost, but I'm still riding the high of the fact that I've been doing it for that long. So thank you for anyone who's watched, liked, commented, subscribed, engaged with me in any way. Honestly, the whole concept of give pause hobby, it's just like stuff that just like makes me want to say, I want to put some time into that. There's an amount that I would probably do just myself, regardless of who's watching. But that's not everything. And the fact that people have actually gotten some stuff, some value out of whether it's the music or the teaching or the playthroughs or whatever, means a lot. So thank you for, especially as I say before, if you're still here at this point in the video, double thank you to you. And with that, I hope you have a great rest of your day. I will see you next time with whatever we've got coming up. Bye.